Good news, and I got some bad news. The bad news is the blackouts are not going to be going away anytime soon. The good news is it's not going to be as bad as it was during winter. Let's find out why that is. Heidi Giokos, you were out there today as well, as far as Eskom is concerned, and they were talking about winter numbers and summer numbers. We thought, well, when the rain comes back, it's going to warm up and we're going to have no load shedding, but you're about to break our hearts, aren't you?
Yes, okay, let's not talk about the rain, because we were once told...
Yeah, the coal gets wet, then there's even worse. It's almost like anything happens right now, the power goes out.
Yes, it's hopefully that's not going to be the case. But we have been told that for the summer outlook, we'll probably be between stages 1 and 4. They're not expecting us to go up to any higher stages of load shedding. But this is all dependent on how reliable our generating units are, which we know that that isn't often the case. You have generating units that trip. You have issues at power stations. And to be quite honest, Gareth, a lot of our power stations are not 100% performing. There are a number of issues. For example, at Cassim, you currently have a power station at the moment that has generating units, and they're all offline because of maintenance, because of breakdowns, because of a number of issues. And that's why they need to make sure that all power stations are performing. So they are expecting for the summer outlook to be between stages 1 and 4, but that's all dependent on how reliable our generating units are. It also depends on our consumption. It's obviously a lot lower. The demand is a lot lower because it is summer, which means that we're not using our heaters, and there isn't a very high consumption in terms of electricity supply.
We are using air cons and all
but
those
that's
things.
the other thing.
It just keeps shifting, doesn't it? It just keeps moving from one excuse to the other.
Using air cons, and then we have issues with water. I mean, it just never ends. But let's listen to what the CEO had to say in terms of the summer outlook.
If we look back in terms of winter and how we performed, we did on 39 days incur stage 6 load shedding, but you will see when Sekhamotso Skiepa speaks around the winter performance, on more occasions we were sitting between stage 3 as well as stage 4. Obviously, going forward, we would want that to be reduced further in terms of the summer outlook. My colleagues will present assumptions that has gone into the summer outlook and the different scenarios, where we are as a management and what we believe is achievable in the summer. A base case scenario of unplanned outages of 14,500 megawatts through the summer period. And what does that mean in terms of the different stages of load shedding throughout the period?
All right, so you saw briefly there on screen as well, and it's something you mentioned earlier, water. It was now they're indelibly linked as well, because reservoirs aren't working, because there's no power, the pumps go down, and we keep going around in circles. So what is the story with areas that wanted to be exempt from power cuts because of their water problems?
Yes, so it's a very critical one that Eskom, of course, has to look into, Gareth, because we know that a number of areas have been really struggling without water for weeks on end. And a lot of it, according to Joburg Water and Rand Water, has to do with the fact that they struggle to pump water quick enough to their reservoirs because of the prolonged power outages that we are seeing. And the question that I posed to Eskom was, are you considering exempting these specific areas? It becomes very difficult. It's almost like when there was a request for schools and hospitals to be exempt, because if you exempt, you can't just exempt one building. You have to almost exempt the whole area, and then that becomes problematic. Then it basically defeats the purpose of load shedding and Eskom's need to try and reduce supply. So that obviously is a bit of a tricky situation, but Eskom says they will look at specific areas, especially where there's a really big problem in terms of water supply. For example, in the south, we have been told that they haven't had water for almost 2 months, and that becomes problematic. And if the area was exempt from load shedding, maybe the problem wouldn't be as big as it currently is. Let's listen to what Eskom had to say about the consideration and having discussions with municipalities in the area.
The situation in Gauteng and the water, it's quite painful. I think even some of us are victims of that. So I think it's the impact is not lost to us. So and for that, and for our part, we also want to apologize. So when the issues started last year in the main with rainwater, we worked with rainwater to address the key infrastructure that was problematic at the time. Those would have been dealt with, and for some time the situation had normalized. Now, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago there was some severe weather situation that affected one of the substations, which then created the situation that we have. Yes, we, on a case-by-case basis, make an assessment on each of the points that people would apply for exemption. Now, we sit with the challenge that a lot of these points are within municipal boundaries, and it's municipalities that must give those exemptions as licensed distributors. But in areas where we supply, we make a consideration and we make a judgment on whether or not it can be excluded. Unfortunately, a lot of the points are smaller points that are not listed as part of the critical infrastructure in the existing NRS 048.9. But it's something that we need to work on.
All right, so you spoke summer numbers, you spoke about the issue regarding water as well. I don't imagine you asked about the wet, cold and rain during summer.
No, Gareth, because I hope that never happens again.
I was wondering if somebody was going to ask that. Heidi Giokos, thank you. As always, I'm afraid South Africa, it's not great news. It's better news, and still a bizarre thing to say that we're not going to have as much blackouts, as much load shedding in our country. We shouldn't have any. Obviously, but it sounds weird to say it's going to be less during summer. Let's hope it stays that way. All right, don't go anywhere. Still coming up for you here on Today on eNCA.